All right, we are live. Joe, you ready to get absolutely nuts?
I'm ready.
Okay. On today's episode of Playing Small is Canceled, we have a very exclusive treat. He's the visionary founder of Project Smile World, a heartfelt initiative providing free education to the most underserved communities around the globe. And he's published author of the transformative books We and Healing Addiction, sharing his profound nuggets and personal journeys, which will penetrate your soul. Big facts. His emotionally resonant messages are passionate public speaker and TEDx presenter, captivate audiences worldwide, drawn from his high emotional intelligence to connect with and uplift those around him. And he's committed to empowering individuals and breaking the cycle of poverty by ensuring access to quality education, creating opportunities for personal and community growth, just to name a few. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the abundant, vulnerable, compassionate, heartfelt, and handsome Joe Mittiga. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the intro.
My pleasure. I hope I did good by you by that. I hope you
You
enjoyed.
did. Thank you.
I just want us, just for our audience that's just tuning in, that's going to catch a replay, what you might see behind Joe is the most impressive, amazing puzzle I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I give you the little visual all the way up to the top. There you
That
go.
is just breathtaking. Love it so much.
Thank you.
This is going to be so much fun. There's so many places we could take this conversation. I always like to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. Before we dive in, I just wanted to ask you straight off the cuff, how important is it for you, Joe, to be connected to your mission?
It's everything. Without it, you have no direction. And I can tell you that the mission I have today, it's in the same direction as the mission of the past 30, 40 years ago. But I think, you know, 30 years ago, my mission was to get sober, to just start living a functioning life and hit some super hard bottoms. But I just kept moving forward. My puzzle is a perfect example of that. 18,000 some odd pieces. How do I do it? One piece at a time, one step at a time. So my vision and connection that I have today as a single man, two raised kids, successful business with Project Smile, different than it was over the years because I'm different. And this whole thing I'm doing now started 3 years ago, September 22nd. And, I'm a guy that some people think I'm crazy. I hear voices, and that voice is just a really strong gut instinct, heart driven. And when I feel it, I act. And if I don't act, I don't sleep. So it's one of those things to where as it unfolds, it kind of changes and shifts. I learned years ago that rigidity doesn't work, and being truly connected to it is something that you love, easy to do.
We could just drop the mic right there, but we're just getting
Sure.
warmed up. It's amazing. And there's no better feeling. There's no higher source of motivation than when you're actually really connected to what you're doing at a soul level. And
That's
it's
true.
so obvious that you are. It's oozing through the screen. So I love that about you. So good. And it's funny because you mentioned there you're evolving, you're changing, right?
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that you can ever say to somebody is don't ever change,
Right.
right? Because it's funny because sometimes like when you're in a relationship, they might say like, stop trying to change me. And look, we don't want to like force a change upon someone, but the idea is that we're always growing, evolving, and expanding. And if you're not doing that to an extent, you're dying, right? Because your soul on a spiritual level, I believe your soul came here to expand. And like
Absolutely.
different lifetime ago, but when I was on Wall Street before I reinvented myself and so forth, I remember very specifically the feeling of waking up every day and my soul was contracting and it was the worst feeling in the world. And I think a
Yes.
lot of people experience that whether in relationships or jobs or things that they're just doing that are misaligned. So I
Sure.
love that you hammered that home that you're not the same person that you were probably 3 months ago, let alone 3 years
That's
ago.
right.
So great
That's right.
share of that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So many places we can take this. I love your content. I want to encourage everybody to give him a follow, check out all the stuff he's got going on, his books, all that we're going to get into it. But one of the things that you talk about often, and I'd just love to know how you would define this, is what does it mean, Joe, to be a heart-centered entrepreneur?
Heart centered entrepreneur is if you think about humanity as a multidimensional being, right? We've got a male side and a female side. The male side is our brain and our action. The feminine side of ourselves is the spiritual sense of self, the emotional sense of self. And it doesn't matter man, woman, black, white, it doesn't matter that. I'm talking about your humanity, your spiritual sense of self. Well, 50 years ago, gut instinct and following intuition and all of that, it didn't exist. Prior to the Tony Robbins or the Zig Ziglars, which is, in my age, that whole concept didn't exist. The personal growth as a concept 50, 60 years ago didn't exist. Well, now it's mainstream, right? So what means being a heart-centered entrepreneur, a heart-centered person, is quite honestly, if you're taking an action step and it feels good, emotionally feels like it's a glass, it's filling your glass, then move in that direction. Now, let me tell you the biggest confusion for most. The reason I can do everything I'm doing now, Craig, is because for 15 years, I built a traditional business called Avion, and Avion pays all my bills. I've been working hard, so in the world I'm in now, I'm able to do it so freely because right from step one, I didn't have to earn income off it. I say it from the stage all the time. It's not your inspiration's job to pay your bills. It's yours. So the most successful people out there, the reason most businesses fail, lack of cash flow in any business, right? Well, what happens so often, people get this emotional passion and attachment to some action, and then they go, oh gosh, it's been 90 days, haven't made a penny, can't pay my electric bill, and they blame the passion. So the heart-centered position is more finding something you love. And if it's an action you can bring back out into the world, great, perfect. And how people find it, I talk about this in my TED. There's kind of a 4-stage experience that I see people go through that I went through. Starts with dreams, moves to inspiration, goes to creation, into manifestation. Well, I say all the time, dream big dreams, And you and I know as kids we had dreams, as adults we have dreams. And if you just let your dreams flow and start writing, eventually over time, they kind of carve down into those 2 or 3 things that stick. Well, I believe those 2 or 3 things that stick move from imagination to inspiration. And I think inspirations are more from our divine sense of self. Now, you can have all the inspiration you want, and, the way you start moving that out of your sense of self and into the world, I start writing stuff down. I start talking to people about it. I every time I have an idea, I put it all in the same folders. I might have 10, so I might have 10 different folders. So my inspirations, right? To help people in the world, free education. I wrote all that down, right? And then eventually I get to the spot where my folder's full. And I say, now what am I going to do with it? When I start contacted a web designer. I started building a website. That moves into creation stage, right? So we go from dreams, imagination, inspiration, humanity, inspiration, divinity. And then in the creation stage, the phrase, God can only do for you what God can do through you, that's where creation comes in. God cannot pick up my piece of paper and write. God can't call, your divinity can't call the web designer. And I want everyone to understand real quick, I use the word God today, 30 years later, because it's just simple. 30 years ago, couldn't use the word. And it's interchangeable. You can call it Jesus. You can call it Buddha. You can call it gut instinct. You can call it whatever, higher sense of self. I don't get stuck on the adjective. The question is, are you following it? And then you go then creation, right? So creation is all your inspirations that are from the divine sense of self. Now you're being drawn to literally, physically dial the phone, write things out, create a website. ProjectSmile.world is a creation of me. We did it long enough, and then it moves into manifestation. We've had 55,000 people from around the globe go there and download stuff for free. Now, is there any money in that? No. Do I need it to be money in that? No, I got my bills covered right over here. But is the sense of grace I feel, I can't even wrap my brain around it. 55,000 people, I've been doing it 4 months, have changed their world just a little. Poverty around the globe is able to be solved with education. Well, when I was in South Africa, I learned about the no water for 400 million people. My head exploded. So what I really realized is today versus years past, technology wasn't at a place to solve the big issues. Water in the Serengeti is 500 feet deep. Technology 20 years ago, you couldn't drill a well that deep. We didn't have the ability. Now we can. So the heartfelt initiatives, the heartfelt experience, it means literally when you're taking an action, you're taking an action from your head that is a glass full, all-encompassing, I think I can possibility thought versus I can't do it, no one will listen to me, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, I'm too white, whatever. We have both those voices in our head. Those are here. In our heart, when I take an action and I feel full because of the action, not the result. Now, again, there's many people out there, right, that they're going to take action. They're going to create something. It's going to bring value to the end user. That end user is going to pay them, so they get the reward in income. But the reward is the cherry, not the cake. That's the experience that I live from, and that's basically what my books are. And in my next book, Awaken Greatness.
Well said. Something that comes to mind is you operate from soul consciousness. So everything that you're doing has pure intentions. And then the byproduct of that is unapologetically, you make a lot of money, you're doing very well for yourself. But that's not at the forefront. That's the energetic exchange. And I think it's really interesting because when I say that, and I love everything that you just shared, I don't say that just to be humble or noble. That's actually how it works, right? When you channel, I'll say creator, God, same thing. When you channel that type of energy that's pure, that doesn't have an agenda, take care of everything else.
Yes,
absolutely. Just a good reminder, the way that you shared that.
Well, let me just share it real simple. And this is the facts for everybody out there. Poor people can create a smile. Rich people can create hope, period. I've got 2 orphanages that I deal with. Literally, I come back, my South Africa trip, I could fill up 10 of these with just that trip. A guy asked for $50. I'm like, what the heck? In 5 minutes, through my phone, whatever the app is, he has my $50. Didn't think a thing of it. 2 hours later, I'm getting a video of 22 children who have no shoes on that live somewhere in Nigeria or wherever they live, thanking Uncle Joe with my picture. Thank you, Uncle Joe. Well, that $50 went to help a little girl whose arm was broken. Her name is Nala. And Nala's arm, or Patricia's the first one, Nala's the second, her arm was swollen, right? I asked him later, this part of the world, he has nothing. He does, the kids don't. I said, what happens if she doesn't get that money? Well, eventually her arm swells, they tourniquet right here, they cut it off. So think about it. If I didn't have the overflow of $50, back to your statement, God wants people to make as much money as possible. And then my whole message is 1% one time a year, right? And without that $50, by now, Patricia's arm would have probably been cut off. And the grace I felt 5 months ago when that happened, it's the same today. Now, I have a tremendous amount of things to be grateful for. I've got elite kids, blah, blah, blah. But that sense of grace. And these two, so I invest in these 2 particular men, the long-term caregivers. I've got about 70 kids I care for through these 2 men. So I invest in their small businesses. One's a juice business, one's like a little hardware store. So they can provide, they can build, they use their money and feed the kids. I invest in their gardens. If you go on Project Smile LinkedIn, their garden's now as tall as the man. So we're talking $400. For $400, we plowed an acre worth of ground, planted seeds, it's mace and beans, and that $400 will feed these 22 kids for a year. So when I say all that, right, back to the whole place of everybody has their thing. These two men I'm talking about, at any point they could leave. Educated, smart. They were both raised in very challenging worlds, so they ain't leaving these kids, but they could. Their role from a creator position is hands-on. That's not my role. I want to go visit for 3 days, but I'm coming back to Atlanta. But I can be a voice and I can donate a little money to invest in the people. So I agree 1,000%. The more abundance we have, the more and you find those right places, the more you can help people.
Unbelievable. Could not agree more. We're on the same page. And abundance is a consciousness, just like lack is, right? People
Yes.
think that because of their bank account not showing what they like, that means lack. That's actually the effect.
Yes.
That's just the symptom of the consciousness, which is either abundance or lack. And
Yes.
that can be evolved and transformed.
Absolutely can. Absolutely can. My keynote that I do called Awaken Greatness, I talk about that thing. You know, there are plenty of people out there. The reason I call us the generation of change, 4 things. Technology different than ever before. Generation lap happening, prolonged caregivers happening, and more money on the planet than ever before. Do you know there's more money globally that moves through our planet in 1 hour than used to exist 100 years ago? A financial guy like you do the math, the trillions that move through every day, it didn't even exist that much.
Yeah.
Technology, like I say, Serengeti, my website, you know, people, they don't have water, but they have cell phones. I asked the guy, how is that? They look up. Satellites can reach everywhere, right? And what's happening is the prolonged caregiver concept. People had spiritual experiences 20 years ago in their 20s and 30s. They go somewhere, they had no money, and for 20 years, as they're building their careers, their businesses, they've been doing it. I've come across 6 or 7 different groups of people that, you know, I've got a guy that's working in Dominican Republic. I've got another guy that's his thing's called Blue Dragon. He's rescued 3,400 kids off the streets of Vietnam. So the prolonged caregivers are out there. And what's different today than any other time, the generation lap, our kids are smarter than we are, for sure. But there's more people in the entrepreneurial world that have made more money in shorter periods of time than ever before. We have more 50-year-olds that are worth 10, 15, $20 million because they started when they're 30, now they're 50, and they sell, let's say, so they got 20 million bucks, and they say, like, what's next? I'm only 50. But they don't have the gumption, the passion, the drive to go start another business. That's where my message comes in. And I'm like, you move from gratitude to grace, where you take 1% of your money, take 1%. And at Project Smile, I help people. I have my thing, right? There's hundreds of different organizations out there. But 1% one time, literally, if somebody had $2 million, or 2 million, let's say. I use this story. I said, you know, when you die, your kids are going to think about you 5 times a year. It's common. Your birthday, their birthday, Christmas, holiday. So you ask yourself the question, Mr. Entrepreneur, you got $1 million. Do your kids really care if you give them $1 million or 990,000? Of course not. They don't care. But that $10,000, I've got a guy, Chris, in Somalia. He's a man. He's 40 now. He's been drilling wells in Somalia since he was 18 years old. Business, wife, 2 kids, the whole thing. $10,000, he drills 2 wells. 2 wells in Somalia helps 5,000 or 6,000 people have water. So my legacy post concept, right? Somebody donates that $10,000. We give them a plaque on a well, and their kids aren't thinking about them every day when they pass. But the water wife who's walking, now she walks 100 feet instead of a mile, she's looking at him and saying, I'm praying for that guy every day. So there's more wealth than ever before. And I believe it's like you're saying, people are evolving, they're waking up. All my books are about what's after gratitude. What do we do after the accomplishment of gratitude? It's the seeking of grace. Gratitude is a human experience. Grace is a divinity experience. Gratitude is something always wonderful. Accomplish, gain, be blessed, wonderful. But it's an ever-chasing thing. On Monday, you're grateful for $1 million, and you typically go pursue 2 million to be grateful again. Grace is one of those things to where when you just start giving back a little bit, I have the same feeling today of that $50 in Patricia's arm 5 months ago. It's the same feeling. And so my work and my keynotes and the things I do out there, I walk people through that shift, that because there's a lot of people seeking what's next. We're young, got plenty of money.
100%. And I feel like we're as young as our soul is, right? Because I know people that retire early and they decide that they're good. They're like one step closer to death. And I know people like my dad, who's 90, battling cancer, and yet that guy wakes up every day and he's got so much to live for.
Yes.
It's a beautiful concept. Thank you for sharing all this. It's amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
I resonate deep with all this. So, and I think this is a good place to take it. I imagine what you just spoke about is connected to this, but I know you love to speak about this idea, but how does one awaken greatness?
How you awaken greatness is, first off, you have to understand that you're not an individual me. We are a we. Each human, each person standing here has multi-dimensions in themselves, right? I say a higher self, a human self, an inner self. Well, that inner self is the part that when it's in turmoil and craziness and chaos, therapy is the answer. It is. You need emotional help. Great. Now, for the rest of the 95% of the people whose life is pretty good, they're not dealing with trauma or angst or addiction. When you really start to realize that we are more than just our human self is, we're more than that. And you can look, for the Christians out there, and I have to tell everybody, people ask me, because I transcend religion all the time, because I talk about the common thread amongst all religions, monolithic God and love. I don't care what modern religion you're talking about, monolithic God and love. And so I don't get into the debate of which religion, because religion is really talking about your action steps today for your eternal life. However you go, great. I'm talking about the actions of your today and your tomorrow. So when you truly look at and understand, the first awareness is we're multidimensional. And there's exercises I've done with people that I can literally help them through exercise and workshops, write down all their fear-based voices or their guilt-based voices in their head that they hear all the time. I'm not good enough. You write a whole list. Well, there's a part writing and there's a part being written about. And when we share that out loud with people, that's what my book We is about. You literally start identifying that as you're sitting here right now, if you stopped and you thought about any given topic, you're going to have thoughts that describe the topic as fear-based and limited, and you're going to have thoughts that describe the topic as abundant and glass full. They're in us both now. When we see that as only a me, we're disconnected and isolated in our own little world. When we identify those multiple different voices, our feelings, experiences, depending on the type of person you are, some people are real analytical. Some people are very empathetic. They feel. Some people are very audible. They hear. But you can literally at any given time, there's exercises that I help people do to identify the different parts. And then you look at your actions. And if your actions are you're following the glass empty, it's never going to work here. That's why your bank becomes less than month, right? But the awakened greatness concept is the first initial position of it is become aware you're a multidimensional being, and you're already there. You already understand you're multidimensional. So we're not trying to grow upon the glass empty voices. We're trying to grow and expand those glass full voices. So what I teach people, and I tell people that when we're listening to our glass full voices, we're listening to a divine sense of ourselves. For the Christians out there, and I'm not, I don't know what I am with all that, but I literally asked Chet, I said, right now, today is October the 8th at 11:47. Why? Because of one guy. One guy died 2026 years ago. One guy, doesn't matter your religion, one guy died. The calendar started. I said to myself, doesn't it make sense we should at least consider listening what the guy who the calendar was started off of, right? So I asked chat one day, I said, what is the last thing Jesus said? And Jesus said, as he's ascending, the disciples didn't want him to go. I'm paraphrasing completely. I've never read the Bible myself. Basically said, I have to go return to the Father so the Holy Spirit that's in me can be placed in all of you. That's the Christian message. You look per spiritual book out there, and you can find the same message from these deities we talk about 2,000 years later. They all say it. Do some time on chat. Ask chat to give you quotes of any of 10 of the most famous people out there, from Dave Ramsey to Oprah to Obama to Eric Trump. You name it, right? They all have quotes saying something about, I'm blessed by God, my divinity, I follow my divinity, to the person, anybody with massive success. So the awakened greatness concept for the rest of us, right? Now, not everybody is going to be the next Steph Curry. That's fine. But as you hear and you start awakening to the understanding, you're not just this physical thing. The essence of you is something grander than just your physical. You start awakening to all possibility. And those possibilities, I don't know what somebody's guidance is going to be. Might be to build a playground. It might be to raise beautiful kids. It might be to go to wherever. It might be to be the next billionaire. Might be whatever your might be. But you're going to find it in that higher sense of you. So the awakened greatness concept, and this is how I believe I'm going to heal the world. My goal, my dream, big dreams, heal humanity. How? If I can help a million people become aware that they're not a physical being, they're a spiritual being having a human experience. And when you say it to people that have never heard it, they go, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I knew that my whole life. I was in South Africa. My friend prays. He said, as a kid, Joe, they always made fun of me. They called me crazy. I says, why that? He said, I heard voices. Well, you hear voices yourself. We hear voices. We call it whatever. I call it a divine self a lot. But the awakened greatness concept is shifting awareness to that there's a grander you in addition to the human you. I help a million people do that, raise consciousness of a million people, 4 or 5%, the ripple effect. By the time we reach a billion, there's always going to be challenge. There's always going to be strife. There's always going to be human issues. There are. But the water concept, no. Things like that can be healed. And I believe they're going to be healed in this generation.
Amen.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So much wisdom, brother. Thank you for all of this. Before we land the plane, we'll have a little fun with some rapid fire. Of all the things that you have going on right now, what are you most pumped about?
My oldest son got a full ride to play D1 baseball. And interestingly enough, I haven't been disappointed in forever. My Dubai trip of all weekends was overlapping. So Dubai gets yanked because of the issues. I get to spend that time with my son. That's a family thing. The thing I'm the most literally pumped about my spiritual path, my book, I'm an author who writes like I speak. And I've got these excellent editors that make sure everybody that reads it knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I listen to my book through my editor's writing, and they change like 2% of the words. And I'm like, whoa, that's just really good. So I'm pumped about how my editor made my message so everybody will understand it. And that's really cool for me.
Beautiful. This is awesome. We'll put all the stuff in the show notes, how people can access your other books and so forth. Before we land the plane, just a little, maybe rapid fire, have a little fun. Are you ready for me?
Yep.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Indiana Jones. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Okay. Your favorite guilty pleasure?
Watching too much baseball.
That's a good thing. Braves, I imagine.
Braves.
Okay.
Like college baseball now too.
Got it.
Enjoy college baseball.
Okay. Your favorite book, or maybe one that's made a big impact on you?
The only book I've ever read is Conversations with God, Neil Diamond Walsh, 20 years ago.
He's a friend of mine. He's been on the podcast. It's pretty deep stuff.
Yeah, fabulous.
Okay. And last but not least, your favorite morning ritual essential?
Breathe. You know, I understand that life is breath. It's not only a morning, but it's all the time. I say it all the time, dear God, guide me. Just guide me. I'm willing, I'm listening. Dear, guide me. So every morning, to say that I stop my world to do it, but my ritual all the time is God, guide me, Spirit, guide me. And then through whenever I see change, and I've been through a tremendous amount of great change, and all change is challenging. I don't care if you're expanding to be a billionaire or going through the darkest, right? It's all challenging. And my mantra is give me the strength and courage. Give me the strength and courage to transcend my humanity, to truly live a place of divinity. And I start every morning in that sense of consciousness.
Unbelievable. I love it. This was special. Joe, hang up for 1 second. I want to connect with you after. Thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.